My fiancé said at her bachelorette party, "One last night of freedom before I settle for boring." Her friend posted it on Instagram. I saw it, canceled the wedding venue, and returned the ring. She woke up to 200 confused guests and no ceremony. I'm 34 and typing this from what should have been my wedding day. Instead, I'm at home in sweatpants, while 200 people showed up to a canceled ceremony this afternoon. Been with Amanda for 4 years, engaged for 8 months. Wedding was supposed to be today, Saturday afternoon at 3 p.m. We'd been planning this for months with our wedding coordinator. Total cost was going to be about 35 grand, which pretty much wiped out my savings, but Amanda wanted the dream wedding. Everything fell apart last Monday because of an Instagram video. Wednesday was Amanda's bachelorette party. I had my bachelor party the same night across town. Standard setup, her friends took her to some upscale lounge downtown while my buddies and I hit a sports bar. Nothing crazy on either end, just normal pre-wedding celebrations. Thursday morning, Amanda seemed normal. Maybe a little hungover, but that was expected. She was running around doing last-minute wedding prep, picking up her dress from final alterations, confirming details with vendors. I was handling my own checklist, picking up my tux, making sure everything was ready. Monday morning, exactly 1 week before the wedding, I was scrolling Instagram when I saw that Amanda's friend Jessica had posted a video to her main feed with highlights from the bachelorette party. The video was a compilation of clips from Wednesday night. Music pumping, drinks flowing, all the girls dancing and having a good time. Normal stuff, but one clip made my blood run cold. Amanda was at the bar talking to some guy I didn't recognize. The audio was clear enough to hear her voice over the background music. One last night of freedom before I settle for boring. Got to make it count. Then she leaned in and kissed the guy. Not a quick peck, but a real kiss. I watched that 10-second clip about 50 times, trying to make sure I was seeing and hearing it right. My fiancé, exactly 1 week before our wedding, was kissing some random guy at a bar while talking about settling for boring. Boring apparently being me. I screen recorded the video and called Amanda immediately. Went straight to voicemail. Tried 3 more times over the next hour. Same result. Then I started making the hardest phone calls of my life. First call was to our wedding coordinator, Lisa. Explained there was a serious personal situation and I needed to explore cancellation options. With 7 days' notice, you'll be responsible for about 80% of all vendor costs since most final payments are due this week. The venue alone will be about $20,000. I told her I understood and asked her to start the cancellation process. We'd been paying vendors throughout the planning process, so most of the money was already spent anyway. Second call was to my travel agent to cancel the honeymoon. 7-day cancellation on the resort package meant losing about 90% of the cost, roughly 6 grand. Third call was to my bank to stop payment on the final vendor checks that were scheduled to go out Tuesday. By Monday evening, I'd worked with Lisa to cancel every vendor. Total cost of calling off the wedding was about 28 grand in vendor payments and cancellation fees. I kept the wedding insurance, which covered about 4 grand for change of heart cancellations, so I was out 24 grand total. Expensive lesson, but cheaper than a divorce. Amanda finally called me back Monday night around 8 p.m. "Hey babe, sorry I missed your calls. Been running around all day getting everything ready for Saturday. You excited?" "Actually, no, I'm not excited. We need to talk." "Can it wait? I'm exhausted and still have a million things to do this week." "Amanda, I saw Jessica's Instagram video from your bachelorette party." Silence. Long silence. "What video?" "The compilation video she posted today. The one where you're kissing some guy at the bar while talking about settling for boring before your last night of freedom." More silence. "Then that's not what it looked like." "I have it recorded, Amanda. I can see and hear exactly what happened. I was drunk. It didn't mean anything. It was just a stupid comment." "A stupid comment about settling for me, your fiancé, the guy you're supposed to marry Saturday." "I didn't mean it like that." "How did you mean it, Amanda? Explain to me how calling your future husband boring and kissing another man has some innocent explanation." She started crying then. Said she was scared about getting married, that she'd made a mistake, that the kiss meant nothing, and she'd been drinking too much. We can work through this. Cold feet are normal. Let's just focus on the wedding Saturday and deal with this after. That's when I told her there wasn't going to be a wedding Saturday. What do you mean? I mean, I canceled everything. Venue, caterer, flowers, DJ, photographer, all of it. Lisa helped me contact all the vendors today. You can't be serious. Dead serious. I'm not marrying someone who thinks they're settling for me. You're overreacting. It was one stupid comment when I was drunk. It wasn't just a comment, Amanda. You kissed another guy at your bachelorette party while talking about how boring your fiancé is. She started panicking then, asking if I'd lost my mind, how we were supposed to tell 200 people. What about all the money spent? What about her dress? You should have thought about that before you decided to test drive other options a week before our wedding. I wasn't testing anything. It was a mistake. The mistake would be me marrying you Saturday. That's not happening. I hung up. She called back immediately, but I didn't answer. Tuesday morning, I went to the jewelry store where I'd bought the engagement ring. Since it was a standard setting with a certified diamond, they agreed to buy it back for 65% of what I'd paid. Got back about $5,000 of the original $8,000. The wedding bands were custom engraved, so those were a total loss. But at least I recovered something. Tuesday afternoon, I started dealing with the guest notification nightmare. Amanda and I had 200 people invited between both our families and friends. I sent emails and made calls to my side explaining the situation. Asked my immediate family to help contact extended relatives. Amanda was supposed to handle her side, but she was having a breakdown and couldn't function. Her mother ended up calling most of their guests Tuesday and Wednesday. Wednesday morning, I got a call from the venue manager. Apparently, some out-of-town guests had already arrived and were asking about rehearsal dinner details. We've been getting calls all morning. People are confused about the cancellation. Some drove here from other states. I felt terrible about the guest situation, but there was nothing I could do. Amanda's choices had created this mess, not mine. Wednesday afternoon, Amanda showed up at my apartment. She'd been crying, looked like she hadn't slept since Monday. Had her sister with her for moral support. Please don't do this. I made a terrible mistake, but we can fix it. I love you. You love the idea of being married, Amanda. You don't love me. If you did, you wouldn't have called me boring. I didn't mean boring in a bad way. There's a good way to call your fiancé boring while kissing other men. Her sister tried to mediate, said Amanda was genuinely sorry and had learned her lesson, asked me to consider postponing instead of canceling completely. There's nothing to postpone. Amanda made it clear how she feels about me. I'm boring. She was settling. She needed one last night of freedom before committing to someone she doesn't actually want. Thursday and Friday were spent dealing with practical details. Amanda and I had been living together in my apartment for 2 years. She moved back to her parents' house Thursday night. We had to divide belongings, cancel shared utilities, separate our finances. Amanda was on my car insurance and phone plan. Had to remove her from everything. The wedding gifts that had already arrived got returned to stores or mailed back to guests with apology notes. Friday evening, I got a call from Jessica, who'd posted the original video. I'm so sorry. I didn't think about you seeing that clip when I posted it. I was just sharing highlights from the night. Don't apologize, Jessica. You did me a favor. Better to know now than after the wedding. Amanda's devastated. She knows she messed up. She's devastated because she got caught, not because she did it. She really does love you. The kiss was just a stupid drunk mistake. Jessica, would you marry someone who called you boring and kissed other people at their bachelorette party? Long pause. Probably not. Then you understand why I can't either. Saturday morning, today, my phone started ringing early. Guests who hadn't gotten the cancellation message were showing up to the venue and finding it locked with a cancellation notice posted. The venue manager had to deal with confused guests all afternoon. Some people had driven from other states, booked hotel rooms, taken time off work. I felt terrible about the inconvenience, but Amanda's actions had made this inevitable. Amanda's been calling and texting all day begging me to reconsider, saying she'll do anything to fix this, that losing me isn't worth whatever stupid decision she made Wednesday night. But the damage is done. She showed me exactly what she thinks of me when she thought I wouldn't find out. I was boring. She was settling. She needed freedom from me. Now she has all the freedom she wanted. Update 1, 1 week later. 1 week since the wedding that didn't happen, and the aftermath has been exactly as messy as expected. Amanda's "one last night of freedom" comment has become legendary among our friends and family. The guest situation was worse than I anticipated. About 40 people had traveled from out of state and didn't get cancellation notices in time. They showed up to a locked venue Saturday afternoon and had to be informed by venue staff that the wedding was canceled. Several guests were angry about their travel expenses and lost time. A few family members called me demanding explanations. I sent the same response to everyone: wedding canceled due to Amanda's infidelity at her bachelorette party. The video evidence is clear. Amanda's mother was handling most of the fallout on their side, but she called me Saturday night in tears. Do you know how embarrassing this was? Amanda's grandmother drove 6 hours to be here. Her college friends flew in from California. I'm sorry about the inconvenience, but Amanda could have considered those consequences before she decided to explore her options. She made one mistake when she was drunk. She made dozens of conscious decisions that night. Every word of that conversation was a choice. Sunday, the story spread through our social circle via social media and text messages. Jessica's video had been saved and shared by multiple people before she took it down. Friends were divided. Some thought I'd overreacted to a drunk mistake. Others agreed that the "settling for boring" comment was unforgivable. My family was completely supportive. My mother said she'd always thought Amanda seemed like she felt too good for me. My dad said any woman who called her fiancé boring while kissing other men wasn't marriage material. Amanda's family was split. Her parents wanted us to work things out. Her siblings thought she'd brought everything on herself. Monday, I had to deal with the financial aftermath. My wedding insurance covered about $4,000 under their change of heart provision, but I was still out $24,000 total. The shared apartment lease was in both our names with 6 months remaining. Amanda agreed to let me keep the apartment and take over her portion of the rent rather than break the lease early. We had a joint savings account for the wedding that still had about $3,000 in it. Split that evenly since we'd both contributed. Tuesday, Amanda tried reaching me through mutual friends. Had her best friend call asking if we could meet to talk things through. There's nothing to talk through. Amanda made her feelings clear Wednesday night. She was drunk and scared about getting married. She knows she messed up. She was honest when she was drunk. That's the problem. Don't you think 4 years together deserves a second chance? Don't you think 4 years together deserved better than being called boring while she kissed other guys? Wednesday, Amanda showed up at the apartment. I almost didn't let her in, but decided to hear what she had to say. I know what I said was horrible. I know the kiss was wrong. I was drunk and scared and stupid. But I love you and I want to marry you. You want to marry me because your backup plan didn't work out, Amanda. If that guy from the bar had been interested, would you even be here? That's not fair. Neither is calling your fiancé boring while kissing strangers. She tried explaining that she'd been feeling overwhelmed about marriage and had made comments she didn't mean. Said the kiss was just alcohol and nerves, not a reflection of her feelings about me. Even if I believed that, you still called me boring to a stranger. That came from somewhere real. I think you're dependable and loving and everything I want in a husband, but also boring and someone you're settling for. She couldn't argue with that because it was recorded with clear audio. Thursday, I heard through friends that Amanda was telling people I'd ruined her life over one drunk comment. She was positioning herself as the victim of an unforgiving ex-fiancé. But too many people had seen or heard about the video. Hard to claim victim status when you're on record calling your fiancé boring while kissing other men. Friday, Amanda's sister called with yet another attempt at reconciliation. Amanda's been in therapy since Monday. She's working on understanding why she sabotaged your relationship. I don't need her to understand why. I need her to live with the consequences. The therapist thinks you could benefit from couples counseling to work through this. There's no couple to counsel. Amanda ended that when she decided I was boring and worth settling for. The sister tried several other approaches, but none changed the fundamental issue. Amanda had shown me exactly what she thought of me when she didn't know I was listening. Update 2. 3 weeks later. 3 weeks since the canceled wedding, and Amanda's attempts to rehabilitate her image aren't succeeding. The settling for boring video has become a cautionary tale in our social circle. Amanda spent the first 2 weeks trying to convince people that the video was taken out of context or that I'd overreacted to harmless drunk talk. But too many people had seen the actual footage. She tried claiming the kiss was barely a peck and meaningless. But Jessica and others who were there confirmed it was a real kiss with obvious intention behind it. Amanda's narrative shifted to positioning me as unforgiving and unable to handle normal pre-wedding jitters. She started telling people that canceling everything was an extreme overreaction to a minor incident. The problem was that most people didn't consider calling your fiancé boring while kissing other men a minor incident. Several mutual friends told me Amanda had asked them to stay neutral and maintain friendships with both of us. Most said they'd try, but privately admitted they thought her behavior was indefensible. 2 weeks ago, Amanda tried a new approach through her mother. Called saying Amanda was so depressed she'd taken time off work and was barely functioning. She's learned her lesson. She knows she almost lost the best thing in her life. She did lose it. That was her choice. Don't you care that she's suffering? I care that she showed me her true feelings before I married her. Better she suffers now than both of us suffer through a divorce later. She made one mistake when she was drunk. She made dozens of choices that night. The conversation, the kiss, calling me boring to strangers. All choices. Last week I heard Amanda was seeing a therapist and telling people that losing me had made her realize how much she actually loved me. But love isn't the issue. Amanda probably does love me in whatever limited way she's capable of. The issue is respect. You don't call someone boring and kiss other people if you respect them. This week Amanda texted me directly for the first time since the wedding week. I know you probably hate me, but I need you to know that I've realized what I lost. You weren't boring, you were stable and dependable and everything I actually needed. I was scared and stupid, and I ruined the best relationship I ever had. I didn't respond immediately. Took time to think about whether anything she could say would change my mind. My response was simple. I don't hate you, Amanda. But I also don't trust you. You showed me what you really think of me when you thought I wouldn't find out. That can't be unseen or unheard. She replied, asking if there was anything she could do to rebuild trust. I told her there wasn't. Trust isn't something you rebuild after deliberately breaking it. It's something you either have or you don't. We don't have it anymore. But I love you. You love the security I provided. You don't love me enough to respect me. She stopped texting after that. Yesterday I ran into Jessica at a grocery store. She apologized again for posting the video that ended my relationship. Don't apologize. You saved me from marrying someone who doesn't respect me. Do you ever regret calling off the wedding? Every day. I regret that I wasted 4 years with someone who thought she was settling for me. Jessica mentioned that Amanda had asked her to delete the original video. Jessica refused, saying it wasn't her responsibility to help Amanda rewrite history. She made her choices. The consequences belong to her. Final update, 2 months later. 2 months since the wedding that didn't happen, and this story has reached its natural conclusion. Amanda's one last night of freedom became permanent freedom for both of us. Amanda's attempts to win me back continued for about 6 weeks before she finally accepted that I was serious about ending things. Her depression was apparently real, and she spent over a month in therapy dealing with the consequences of her choices. Her social rehabilitation never fully succeeded. While some friends eventually forgave her, others maintained that calling your fiancé boring while kissing other men was relationship poison. The video continued surfacing occasionally when people discussed wedding disasters or relationship red flags. Amanda's family eventually stopped contacting me about reconciliation. Her mother sent one final text saying she hoped I'd find happiness and was sorry things had ended so badly. 3 weeks ago, I heard through mutual friends that Amanda had started dating someone new. Apparently, she'd met him through a dating app, and they seemed to be moving quickly. Good for her. Everyone deserves to find someone they don't consider boring. Last week I started dating someone new myself. She's heard the whole story about Amanda and the Bachelorette party video. Her response was that anyone who would call their fiancé boring while kissing other people clearly didn't appreciate what they had. The difference in how she talks about me versus how Amanda did is striking. This woman actually seems excited to be with me, not resigned to settling for me. 2 weeks ago, Amanda texted me one final time, said she'd heard I was dating someone new and wanted to wish me happiness. Also said she'd learned from losing me and would never take another relationship for granted. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. Yesterday would have been our 2-month wedding anniversary if the wedding had happened. Instead, I spent it having dinner with someone who thinks I'm interesting rather than boring. Amanda learned that actions have consequences, and that testing other options at your bachelorette party comes with serious risks. That calling your fiancé boring can become a self-fulfilling prophecy when they find out about it. The guy at the bar learned that kissing engaged women at bachelorette parties can have far-reaching consequences. His kiss contributed to ending a 4-year relationship and cost me $24,000 in wedding expenses. I learned to trust my instincts when something feels wrong and to value myself enough to walk away from people who don't respect me. I also learned that sometimes social media saves you from making terrible life decisions. The Instagram video wasn't revenge or punishment. It was just information. Information that showed me exactly what Amanda thought of me when she didn't know I was watching. Amanda wanted one last night of freedom before settling for boring. She got exactly what she asked for: complete freedom from boring, dependable me. I wanted a wife who was excited to marry me, not someone who considered it settling. I got exactly what I needed when I walked away from someone who called me boring while kissing other men. Everyone got what their choices earned them. Amanda chose to call me boring and kiss other men a week before our wedding. She got to experience life without the boring, dependable stability I provided. I chose to believe her when she showed me who she really was. I got to avoid marrying someone who didn't respect me enough to stay faithful during her own bachelorette party. The canceled wedding cost me $24,000, but marrying someone who thought she was settling for me would have cost me much more in the long run. Sometimes people tell you exactly what they think of you when they don't know you're listening. Amanda told that stranger at the bar exactly what she thought of me. I'm grateful I found out before signing a marriage certificate. The best investment I ever made was spending 1 week canceling a wedding to someone who didn't deserve me. My fiancée claimed she wasn't ready to commit, but asked me to wait. I smiled and said, of course. Then I deleted my socials and vanished overseas. A month later, she was texting everyone we knew, asking if they'd heard from me. You ever have a moment where the world just goes quiet? Not peaceful quiet, but the dead, airless quiet of a vacuum. That's what happened to me last month, sitting in our favorite restaurant, the one where I was planning to finalize our wedding caterer. My fiancée Sarah had just dropped a bomb, and the entire universe seemed to hold its breath to hear the fallout. I just think, she said, swirling the wine in her glass, that things are moving too fast. I'm not sure I'm ready to commit right now. I just looked at her. We had been together for 5 years. We'd been engaged for 6 months. The wedding was in 3 months. We lived in a house I owned. My name was on everything. Her name was on a supplementary credit card I paid for. I had spent the last 5 years building a life, and she was talking about pumping the brakes 100 feet from the finish line. So you're calling off the wedding? I asked. My voice sounded distant, like it was coming from someone else. No, not at all, she said quickly, reaching across the table to put her hand on mine. Her touch felt strange. I just need a pause. I need you to wait for me. Just until I figure things out. I love you, you know that. I just need to be sure. Can you do that for me? Can you wait? Her friends, Ashley and Megan, who were with us to help with the planning, were nodding along, looking at me with these sympathetic, rap-pitying eyes. Ashley chimed in. It's totally normal, Ben. A lot of women get cold feet. You just have to give her some space to breathe. I looked at Sarah's face. She had this earnest, pleading expression, but her eyes were already somewhere else. She wasn't asking for space. She was asking for a safety net. She wanted the ring, the status, the security of a fiancé, but she also wanted the freedom of a single woman. She wanted me to sit on a shelf, like a toy she could come back to when she was done playing. And in that dead, airless quiet, a decision formed. It wasn't an emotional one. It was a logical one. A simple, clean, and absolute solution. I pulled my hand away from hers, smiled a little, and gave her the answer she wanted to hear. "Of course," I said. "I understand. Take all the time you need. I'll wait." Sarah's face flooded with relief. She squeezed my arm, beaming. "Oh, thank you, baby. I knew you'd understand. You're the best." Ashley and Megan smiled, their work done. The good, understanding boyfriend had been placated. They spent the rest of the dinner talking about a girls' trip to Miami. They were now planning for the weekend of what was supposed to be our wedding. A trip to celebrate Sarah finding herself. I just sat there, nodding and smiling, paying for their expensive cocktails and listening to them plan a party on the ashes of our future. I was the best. All right? The best damn fool they had ever seen. But not for long. That night, after I dropped them all off, I went home to our quiet house, my house, and I started to work. There was no rage, no heartbreak, just a calm, cold clarity. She wanted me to wait. Fine, she could wait and see what happened next. My first move was financial. I'm a software developer, and for the last 2 years I had been working on a personal project, an app that had recently been bought out by a major tech company. The deal had closed 3 weeks earlier. It was a life-changing amount of money, something Sarah knew about and was, I now realized, the catalyst for all of this. I called my financial advisor and had him move the entire sum into a series of trusts and offshore accounts. Untouchable. Next, I went through our finances. I canceled her supplementary credit card. I closed the joint account she used for her expenses. I called my lawyer and had him draft paperwork to have her name removed from the car title, the car I had bought for her as a birthday present 2 years ago. Then I went digital. I logged into my social media accounts, Instagram, Facebook, everything. And I didn't just deactivate them. I permanently deleted them. Years of photos, memories, and connections, gone in a series of clicks. I backed up my contacts, then wiped my phone and got a new number. My final move was physical. I packed a single suitcase. Not with clothes, but with my hard drives, my laptops, and the legal documents for my company. I walked through the house one last time, looking at all the things we had accumulated. Her clothes in the closet, her makeup in the bathroom, her little decorations on the shelves. I didn't touch any of it. I just looked at it like it was a museum exhibit of a life that no longer existed. I wrote a single note and left it on the kitchen counter. It said, "I'll wait." Then I walked out, got in my car, drove to the airport, and bought a one-way, first-class ticket to a country on the other side of the world. By the time Sarah woke up the next morning, ready to start her new life of consequence-free freedom, I was already gone. I was a ghost. Update 1. I've been living in a small coastal town in Portugal for the last 6 weeks. I rented a villa overlooking the ocean. The internet is fast, the food is incredible, and nobody knows my name. The silence has been the best part. No drama, no expectations, just the sound of the waves and the quiet hum of my new life. I wouldn't have known about the chaos I left behind if it weren't for my brother Dan. He's the only person who knows where I am. We talk once a week, and he's been giving me the play-by-play of Sarah's slow-motion meltdown. It's been illuminating. According to Dan, the first week was exactly what Sarah had wanted. She told everyone that I was being incredibly supportive and giving her the space she needed. She and her friends went out every night, running up a tab on a credit card that, unbeknownst to them, had already been canceled. The bill for that week must have been astronomical. The first sign of trouble came that Friday. Sarah tried to buy a new dress for a night out, and the card was declined. She tried another, declined. She called the credit card company, and they informed her that the supplementary card had been canceled by the primary account holder. Dan said she called him in a panic, asking if he knew what was going on. He played dumb. "I don't know, Sarah. Maybe you should talk to Ben." "I'm trying," she apparently shrieked. "He's not answering his phone." She spent that entire weekend trying to contact me. Texts went undelivered. Calls went straight to a disconnected message. She checked my social media, and that's when the real panic must have set in. My digital footprint had been wiped clean. The next week, she started her campaign. She began texting our mutual friends. At first it was casual. "Hey, have you heard from Ben? He's being a little weird and not answering his phone." No one had. By the end of the second week, the texts had become more frantic. She was telling people that I was missing, that she was worried something had happened to me. She was trying to paint herself as the concerned, loving fiancé whose partner had vanished without a trace. Some people bought it. Her parents called the police to file a missing persons report. The police came to my house, saw that my car was gone and a suitcase was missing, and concluded that I had likely left voluntarily. There was no evidence of foul play. They told Sarah there was nothing they could do. The real turning point, according to Dan, was when she went to my house. She still had a key. She walked in, expecting to find me sitting in the dark, mourning her absence. Instead, she found the house exactly as she had left it. Her things were all there. The only thing missing was me, and my computers, and my note on the counter. Dan said she called him, absolutely hysterical, after finding the note. "What does this mean? I'll wait." "Wait for what? Where is he?" Dan's response was perfect. "I guess he's waiting for you to figure things out, Sarah. That's what you asked for, right?" The third week was when her financial reality came crashing down. The car I had bought her was repossessed. Her parents had to pay off the massive credit card bill she had racked up in her week of freedom. Ashley and Megan, her loyal cheerleaders, started to distance themselves. Her drama was no longer fun. It was a liability. She started showing up at my old office, asking my former colleagues if they knew where I was. They didn't. I had quit my job the day the buyout was finalized. She went to my parents' house, and my dad told her, in no uncertain terms, that she was no longer welcome there. By the end of the first month, she was a pariah in our old social circle. Everyone knew the truth now. She had tried to play a game, and she had lost spectacularly. The story was that she had driven her rich fiancé away with her entitlement and greed. She had fumbled the biggest bag of her life. Update 2. It's been 3 months now. The autumn in Portugal is beautiful. I've started a new company, a small consulting firm. The work is interesting, and I can do it from anywhere in the world. I've made a few friends, mostly expats like myself. I'm not waiting for anything. I'm living. Dan called me last week with the latest news from the home front. It seems Sarah's situation has continued to devolve in the most predictable ways. After being shunned by our old friends, she tried to reinvent herself. She moved out of her parents' house and into a tiny apartment with Ashley. That arrangement lasted for about 2 months. According to Dan, who heard it from a friend of a friend, it ended in a massive screaming match over rent money. Sarah had apparently expected Ashley to cover her share as a loan until she could get back on her feet. Ashley, who was tired of funding her friend's delusions, kicked her out. So, Sarah had to move back in with her parents. Again, she also had to get a real job. No more vague part-time gigs that were really just hobbies. She's working as a hostess at a chain restaurant now, the same one we used to go to when we first started dating. The irony is almost poetic. The most interesting development, though, is the narrative she's trying to spin. She's no longer the worried fiancé. Now she's the victim of a cruel, manipulative man who abandoned her without cause. She's telling people that I was secretive and controlling, that my sudden wealth changed me, and that I disappeared to avoid my responsibilities to her. It's a bold strategy, but it's not working. The problem for her is that too many people know the truth. Too many people were there at that dinner. Too many people received her frantic, unhinged texts in the weeks that followed. Dan told me about a particularly pathetic incident that happened a couple of weeks ago. She ran into a group of our old friends at a bar. She tried to join their conversation, launching into her sob story about how I had ghosted her. One of them, a guy named Mark who I've known since college, finally had enough. He cut her off mid-sentence. "Sarah, we were all there," he said. "We all heard you. You told him to wait. You wanted to pause your engagement so you could have a girls' work trip to Miami. You did this to yourself. Ben's not the bad guy here. He just gave you exactly what you asked for." Dan said the entire group just stared at her. and she completely fell apart. She started crying and yelling about how none of them understood, how they were all taking my side. She caused a huge scene and ended up getting kicked out of the bar. Her friends, Ashley and Megan, have completely cut her off. They are apparently telling everyone that Sarah is toxic and that they had tried to warn her she was making a mistake. They have conveniently forgotten their role as her primary enablers. They are now trying to salvage their own reputations by throwing her under the bus. It's a lonely life, I imagine, when you burn every bridge you've ever crossed. She thought she was playing a game of chess, but she didn't realize I wasn't playing. I just knocked the board over and walked away. Final update. It's been a year. I'm still in Portugal, but I've moved to a larger place in Lisbon. My business is thriving. I've been dating a woman here, a local architect. It's serious. It's real. It's the furthest thing from the drama-filled life I used to know. I went home for Christmas last year to see my family. It was the first time I had been back since I left. I stayed for 2 weeks, and it was strange, like visiting a town you used to live in, only to find that it's moved on without you, which was exactly what I wanted. I didn't see Sarah. I made a point of avoiding the places I knew she might be. But I heard about her. Oh, did I ever hear about her? The story of our breakup has become something of a local legend, the girl who asked a ghost to wait. Her life has not improved. She's still living with her parents, still working at the restaurant. Her attempts to win back sympathy have all failed. She has become a cautionary tale. My brother told me the final, pathetic chapter of her story so far. About 2 months ago, she apparently hired a lawyer, a budget, no-win, no-fee kind of guy. She was trying to sue me for breach of promise and emotional distress. She was claiming that our engagement was a verbal contract and that my disappearance had cost her years of her life and potential earning power. My lawyer back home, the same one who helped me secure my assets, received the letter. He told me he actually laughed out loud when he read it. He sent back a 1-page response. It included a signed and notarized affidavit from our wedding planner, detailing the events of the dinner where Sarah had asked me to wait. It also included a copy of the restaurant receipt, showing the $400 I had spent on her and her friend's celebratory dinner that night. The final paragraph of the letter was simple. It stated that I had, in fact, honored her request. I had waited. I was still waiting. I was just doing it from a different continent, and I would continue to wait indefinitely. It wished her the best in her own period of waiting. She dropped the lawsuit the next day. The lawyer probably told her she had a snowball's chance in hell of winning. That's the end of the story, really. There was no big confrontation, no tearful reunion, no satisfying moment of me telling her off to her face. My revenge wasn't about that. My revenge was my absence. It was the gaping, silent hole I left in her life where a future used to be. She wanted to put me on pause, to treat me like a convenience she could access whenever she was ready. She thought her request for me to wait was a power move, a way to control the situation. She didn't realize it was the last decision she would ever get to make in our relationship. I just let her words hang in the air, and then I built a new world in the silence that followed. She's still waiting, and I'm finally free. My ex-wife showed up to our divorce hearing pregnant. She thought it would secure her a payout, until the judge asked one question. You ever sit in a courtroom and watch someone dig their own grave in real time? Because that's exactly what my ex-wife, Jessica, did. I should have known she'd pull something. The entire divorce process had been a disaster. Delays, tantrums, nonsense filings, just to waste my time. If she had put half as much effort into our marriage as she did into making my life hell, we wouldn't have ended up here. But when she walked into that hearing pregnant, I almost laughed. Not because I thought the kid was mine, I knew it wasn't, but because I could see the plan forming in her head like a cheap soap opera plot. Jessica was banking on one thing, that the judge would see a poor, vulnerable, abandoned pregnant woman and force me to pay up. Forget the prenup. Forget logic. Play the sympathy card. Get a payday. I could already hear the speech she had planned. Your Honor, I have a baby on the way, and I've been left with nothing. How am I supposed to survive? All while shooting me side glances, waiting for me to squirm. Too bad for her, I don't play dumb. And I don't lose. See, Jessica had underestimated me. She thought I'd panic, get flustered, maybe even offer a settlement just to avoid looking like the bad guy in front of the judge. But she didn't know what I knew. She didn't know that I had already figured her out months ago. Because the thing about Jessica, she wasn't just bad at marriage, she was bad at lying. And she had no idea that the one question the judge was about to ask her would make her whole story fall apart. Jessica was smug when she walked into that courtroom. She played it perfectly. One hand on her belly, the other delicately brushing her hair behind her ear like she wasn't about to commit legal fraud. She even threw in a dramatic sigh when she took her seat, like this whole ordeal was exhausting for her. I didn't react. I didn't need to. Because unlike Jessica, I wasn't walking in blind. I was ready, and so was my lawyer, Ethan. Ethan was the kind of guy who smiled in court, but would absolutely gut you with the law. I didn't like lawyers much, but after watching him dismantle Jessica's stunts over the last few months, I had to admit I was glad he was on my side. Jessica, of course, had gone through 3 different lawyers since we started this divorce. The one she had today? A newbie. Fresh out of law school, probably desperate to win his first big case. I almost felt bad for him. Almost, because here's the thing. Jessica had tried this before. Not the pregnancy stunt, but the manipulation, the fake distress, the "I'm just a struggling woman, Your Honor, please take pity on me" act. And unfortunately, some people bought it, including my own mother. A week before the hearing, my mom had called me. "Just settle," she said, voice laced with exhaustion. "You don't want this dragging on forever." I pinched the bridge of my nose. "Mom, she's not getting a cent. That's why we had a prenup." "She's pregnant," she pushed. "You really want that on your conscience?" I almost lost it. "This isn't my kid." Mom hesitated. "Are you sure?" I wanted to laugh. Was I sure? "Mom, she cheated on me, repeatedly. I caught her." I paused. "Besides, you know what the worst part is? If I actually thought this was my kid, she wouldn't even need to pull this stunt. I'd be there. I'd take care of them. That's the difference between us. She schemes, I take responsibility." Mom went quiet. Then she sighed. "I just don't want to see this get uglier." It was already ugly, but I promised her I'd handle it, which brings us back to today. The judge walked in, and the hearing began. Jessica's lawyer launched into a sob story immediately. "Your Honor, my client has been left in an impossible situation. She is pregnant, unemployed, and struggling due to the emotional and financial strain caused by this drawn-out divorce." Jessica sniffled on cue. I didn't even blink. Ethan waited patiently, letting the theatrics play out. Then he stood up. Calm, controlled, ready. "Your Honor, while we certainly sympathize with Ms. Parker's situation, we must clarify a few things before proceeding. First and foremost." He turned to Jessica's lawyer. "Who was the father of this child?" And just like that, Jessica visibly stiffened. I knew that question was coming. Jessica didn't. See, she assumed the court wouldn't question her pregnancy, that she could waltz in, look vulnerable, and walk out with a fat check. But legally, her pregnancy was only relevant if I was the father. Her lawyer froze. Then weakly, "My client believes it is the petitioner's." I almost laughed. Believes? Ethan didn't even flinch. She believes? So there's no proof? Jessica shifted uncomfortably. The judge's eyes narrowed. "Miss Parker, have you had a paternity test done?" Jessica's mouth opened, closed, opened again, trapped. I just assumed." "You assumed?" the judge repeated, unimpressed. "Miss Parker, is there any evidence to suggest the petitioner is the father?" Her lawyer looked like he wanted to die. Jessica looked pale. And I leaned back in my chair, enjoying the show. At this point, Ethan was ready to finish her off. "Your Honor, we have strong reason to believe this child is not my client's." He pulled out photos, taken 2 months after Jessica and I separated, of her on vacation with another man, holding hands, kissing, clear proof she had moved on. And then, the final nail in the coffin. Ethan slid medical documents across the table. Additionally, we have subpoenaed Ms. Parker's recent medical records, which show that her first confirmed pregnancy test was months after she and my client had last been together. Jessica's face crumpled. Her lawyer looked at her, realizing she had never told him any of this. The judge? He let out a long sigh and shook his head. "Ms. Parker, this court does not take kindly to deception. Given the evidence, there is no basis for financial support. The prenup stands. You will not be receiving alimony or additional compensation." Boom. Jessica gasped like she had been physically struck. But Your Honor. This hearing is over. Done. Jessica sat there, frozen. The judge's words were still hanging in the air, but I could see it happening in real time, her brain scrambling for a way out. This wasn't how she thought today would go. In her version of events, she was supposed to cry, look pitiful, and leave with a fat monthly check. Instead, she had been publicly exposed. Her lawyer wasn't even looking at her anymore. He was staring at the floor, probably re-evaluating every decision that led him to take this case. Meanwhile, Jessica was gripping the edge of the table like she could somehow hold on to the last shreds of her scheme. And then the tantrum started. Jessica's last desperate attempt. "But, Your Honor," Jessica blurted out, her voice high-pitched. "This isn't fair. I'm about to have a baby, and he just gets to walk away?" The judge exhaled sharply, rubbing his temples. He was done. "Miss Parker," he said firmly, "this court does not make financial judgments based on emotional appeals. Your pregnancy has no legal bearing on this divorce unless paternity is established, which, based on the evidence provided, it has not been." "But," the judge held up a hand. "Enough," Jessica snapped. She turned in her chair, whipping her head toward me. "You're really going to do this to me? To your own child?" There it was, the final gamble. Even after being publicly humiliated, she was still trying to plant doubt. The courtroom went silent. Then I smiled. A slow, amused, merciless smile. "You really want to do this, Jessica?" I leaned forward, voice calm. "You want to go on record accusing me of being the father? Because we can get a court-ordered paternity test right now." Her face twitched. She had nothing. She knew she had nothing. And in that moment, so did everyone else in the room. The judge didn't even bother responding this time. He simply turned to the clerk. "Adjourned." Done. Jessica had lost everything. But it wasn't over yet. The hearing was over, but I wasn't done watching her fall apart. I walked out of the courtroom with Ethan beside me, my mom trailing a few steps behind. I half expected Jessica to slink out quietly, but I should have known better. She stormed out after me, heels clacking, face red, hands shaking. "You're a monster," she hissed. "You let me sit there, humiliated." I turned slowly, looking her up and down. "I'm sorry, Jessica. Which part humiliated you? The part where you tried to scam the court? Or the part where you realized I was 3 steps ahead?" Her jaw clenched. "You set me up." "No, sweetheart." I smiled again. "You set yourself up. I just let you walk into it." She looked like she wanted to throw something at me. But then, she tried one last card. She turned to my mom. "Are you seriously okay with this, with what he did to me?" Mom hesitated. Then she crossed her arms. "I'm not okay with what you did to him," she said. "You had us all fooled once. Never again." Jessica's lip quivered. For a second, I thought she might actually cry. Then the real explosion. "I hope you rot," she spat, stepping forward like she wanted to claw at me. "I hope you, Miss Parker." The voice came from behind her, a stern official voice. Jessica froze. 2 court officers had stepped into the hallway. "Come with us, please." Her head snapped around. "What? Why?" "The judge has recommended an inquiry into potential perjury and fraud," one officer said. "You'll need to answer some questions." Her eyes went wide. "Wait, no, that's not." But they were already leading her back into the courtroom. I let out a slow breath. Ethan patted my shoulder. "Well, that was satisfying." I smirked. "Yeah, it was." Jessica was dragged back into the courtroom. I didn't follow. I didn't need to. The moment those court officers took her away, she ceased to be my problem. But I still made sure to follow up. Turns out the judge wasn't just pissed. He was making an example out of her. Faking financial distress? Bad. Trying to manipulate the court? Worse. Lying under oath? That's perjury. Her fraudulent claims meant she was now under investigation. The court didn't just dismiss her plea for alimony, they flagged her case for potential financial fraud. She had dug her own grave. Over the next few months, I heard bits and pieces. The judge hit her with fines for wasting the court's time. Her lawyer dropped her immediately. Her attempt to file for government aid? Denied. Turns out, they also require proof of paternity. And the cherry on top? Her new boyfriend dumped her. Apparently, after my lawyer pulled out those vacation photos in court, the guy started doing the math. He realized he wasn't the only one she had been with. And suddenly, he wasn't so sure he was the father either. I can only imagine that conversation. A few months after the trial, I got a text from an unknown number. "Jessica, I hope you're happy." I stared at it for a second, then typed back, "I am. Thanks for asking." Then I blocked the number. I didn't need to hear from her again. She had spent years trying to manipulate, control, and milk me for everything I had. But now, she was alone. And for the first time in a long time, I was free. I was about to propose when I overheard her in the restroom. "I'll just say yes, take the ring, and ghost him." I went back to the table, got down on one knee, and asked the waitress to accept a $10,000 tip paid for by the returned ring. The look on my ex's face as the entire restaurant cheered. I've always been a man who believes in grand gestures. When I love completely. When I commit entirely. For the past 3 years, my world has revolved around my girlfriend, Jessica. I thought we were building a future, a real one. So, I decided to make the grandest gesture of my life. Last night was our 3-year anniversary. I booked a table at Aria, one of those impossibly exclusive restaurants where the tasting menu costs more than most people's rent. In my jacket pocket, nestled in a velvet box, was a 3-carat diamond ring. It had cost me just over $30,000. It was a symbol of everything I felt for her. There was one small practical detail nagging at me. The jeweler had a strict 7-day, no questions asked, full refund policy. After 7 days, it would be store credit only, with a hefty restocking fee. Last night was day 6. I knew I had to propose that night, not just for the romance of the anniversary, but to secure my investment in what I thought was our future. The evening started perfectly. The ambiance was incredible. The food was a work of art. Our waitress, a young woman named Sarah, was wonderful. She was professional and attentive, but I could see a deep sadness behind her eyes. At one point, on my way to the restroom, I passed an open service corridor and saw her on her phone, her back to me. She was crying softly. I only caught a few words of her hushed conversation. "Don't know how we're gonna make the payment. Mom's next round of treatment starts Tuesday. I just need a miracle." I felt a pang of sympathy for her. It was a brief, private glimpse into a real person's real struggles, a stark contrast to the performative luxury of the dining room. I continued on to the restroom, the moment sticking in my mind. As I was washing my hands, I heard voices from the adjoining women's restroom. The acoustics in old buildings can be strange, and the voices were unnervingly clear. One of them was Jessica's. The other belonged to her best friend, who I knew she was texting. She must have had her on speakerphone. "He's definitely going to do it tonight," Jessica said, her voice giddy and triumphant. "I can feel it. He's been acting nervous all evening." "Oh my God, did you see the box?" her friend asked. "Is it big?" "I haven't seen the ring itself," Jessica replied, and then she laughed. It was a cold, sharp sound that didn't sound like the woman I thought I loved. "But the box is definitely a 2-man lift. He's so predictable. He thinks a big rock will make me happy forever." "Well, won't it?" her friend asked. And then Jessica said the words that shattered my entire world. "Of course not, but I'll play the part. I'll cry, I'll say yes, I'll take the ring, I'll post it all over Instagram, make everyone jealous. Then I'll give it a few weeks, maybe a month, and then I'll ghost him. I can sell the ring for at least 20 grand. That's my down payment for the condo I want. It's a perfect plan." I stood there, frozen, my hands under the running water. The sound of their laughter echoed through the wall. It wasn't a betrayal born of passion or a fleeting mistake. It was a cold, calculated financial transaction. I wasn't a partner. I was a mark. The last 3 years of my life had been an elaborate setup for a heist, and the diamond in my pocket was the prize. A strange calm washed over me. The heartbreak was there, a deep, cold stone in my gut, but my mind was working with perfect clarity. I walked back to the table and sat down. Jessica looked at me and smiled, a brilliant, predatory smile. She had no idea I had just become privy to her entire business plan. I saw the whole chessboard. I saw her, the fake queen. I saw the ring, the prize. And I saw the struggling waitress, Sarah, a pawn in someone else's game, a good person who actually needed a miracle. A new, much better grand gesture began to form in my mind. I let us finish the main course. Then, I cleared my throat. "Jessica," I said, my voice steady, "you have made me the happiest man in the world for the last 3 years. And there's something I need to ask you." Her eyes lit up. This was it. the moment she'd been waiting for. I stood up. The diners at the nearby tables quieted down, sensing a moment was happening. I reached into my pocket. I got down on one knee. Jessica put her hands over her mouth in a perfect pantomime of shocked delight. Then I turned my body slightly and called out across the dining room. "Sarah, could you come over here for a moment, please?" Sarah, our waitress, looked up, startled. She hesitantly walked over to our table, a look of complete confusion on her face. "Yes, sir?" I looked up, not at Jessica, but directly into Sarah's worried eyes. I was still on one knee. "Sarah," I began, my voice clear and carrying through the now silent restaurant. "I couldn't help but overhear your conversation on the phone earlier. I know that's an invasion of your privacy, and I apologize, but I heard you. I know you were dealing with something incredibly difficult with your mother's health." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. Jessica's smile was frozen on her face, her expression turning to stone. "This ring," I said, pulling the velvet box from my pocket and opening it to reveal the diamond, "was a symbol of a future I thought was real. I've just discovered that it is not. I will be returning this ring to the jeweler tomorrow for a full $30,000 refund, as per their 7-day return policy." I paused, letting that hang in the air. Then I looked back at Sarah. "And I would like to formally ask you here in front of everyone if you would be willing to accept a $10,000 tip from those proceeds to help with your mother's medical treatments." The silence in the room was absolute. Sarah was openly crying now, her hand covering her mouth in disbelief. Jessica looked like she had been turned to stone. I stood up, turning to address the entire restaurant. "I believe that in this life we should reward things that are real. Real struggle, real loyalty, real kindness. I also believe that some people deserve a miracle." I then turned and looked directly at Jessica, my voice dropping to ice. "And some people deserve exactly what they get. Jessica, we are done." For a second there was nothing. Then, one person at a nearby table started clapping. Then another, and another. Within 5 seconds, the entire restaurant had erupted into a roar of applause and cheers. It was a standing ovation, not for a proposal, but for a demolition. Update 1. The moments following my proposal were a blur of surreal, cinematic chaos. The restaurant manager, a tall man with a perpetually concerned expression, rushed over to our table, clearly unsure if he needed to call for security or a paramedic. "Sir, is everything all right?" he asked, his eyes darting between my stony face, Jessica's horrified one, and Sarah, who was now sobbing with what I hoped were tears of joy and relief. "Everything is perfect," I said, my voice calm. "I just made a young lady a very sincere offer." I turned to Sarah. "I am completely serious about this," I told her gently. "I will be at the jeweler's tomorrow when they open. The money will be refunded to my account. If you are comfortable with it, I would like to make the transfer to you immediately after." I took out my business card and handed it to her. "Send me an email with your details. This is real." She just nodded, unable to speak, tears streaming down her face. I then turned back to the manager, pulled a wad of cash from my wallet, enough to cover our exorbitant meal and a generous conventional tip, and placed it on the table. "Thank you for a memorable evening," I said. Then, without a single glance back at Jessica, who was still frozen in her chair like a statue in a museum of terrible life choices, I walked out of the restaurant. The applause had died down, but I could feel the eyes of every single person in that room on my back. The second I was in the back of a taxi, my phone started to vibrate. It didn't stop. A relentless series of calls and texts from Jessica. I ignored the calls and watched the text previews pop up on my screen. "How could you do that to me? You humiliated me in front of everyone. That was my ring. You owe me that ring, you monster. I'm going to ruin you, you hear me? I'll sue you." I read each one with a detached sense of curiosity. There was no apology, no remorse, just pure, uncut rage that her plan had been discovered and her prize had been snatched away. I waited until the stream of messages paused, then I replied with a single text. "I'm sorry you didn't get the condo down payment you were hoping for. I wish you and your future ghosting victims all the best." Then I blocked her number. Next came the predictable text from her friend, the one she had been on the phone with in the restroom. "You are a sick, twisted monster, Ben," it read. You completely misunderstood a private conversation and used it to publicly torture a woman who loved you. I replied, my hearing is excellent, and if that's how she treats someone she loves, I'd hate to see how she treats her enemies. Tell your friend to enjoy her newfound fame. I hear the story is already making the rounds on the local food blogs. I blocked her number too. The next morning, I was at the jeweler's at 10 a.m. sharp. It was day 7. I walked in, presented the ring and the receipt, and explained that the engagement was off. The manager was understanding and processed the full $30,000 refund back to my card. The money was officially mine again. As I was walking out, my phone buzzed with an email. It was from Sarah, the waitress. The email was short, heartfelt, and full of disbelief. She thanked me profusely and provided her bank details, saying that she still couldn't believe it was real. I went to my bank, sat down with a personal banker, and initiated a wire transfer for exactly $10,000 to her account. I sent her back a simple email. It's real. Tell your mom I'm wishing her a speedy recovery. Later that afternoon, I received one of the most moving emails I have ever read. It was from Sarah again. She confirmed the money was in her account. She told me a little about her mother's illness, about the crushing weight of the medical bills that had been suffocating her family for a year. She said my gesture wasn't just a tip. It was a lifeline. It was the miracle she had been praying for. She said she would never, ever forget it. And in that moment, any lingering doubt I might have had about my decision vanished. The money wasn't gone. It wasn't wasted. I had simply reinvested it. I had taken a symbol of a beautiful lie and turned it into the foundation of a stranger's hope. Jessica wanted to use that money to buy a condo. Instead, I used it to buy a good person a little more time with their mother, and that felt like the best deal I had ever made in my life. Update 2. It has been a few weeks since the night I've come to think of as the proposal. The immediate fallout was exactly as chaotic as you'd expect, but now that the dust is settling, the consequences of Jessica's actions and mine are becoming much clearer. Jessica's first move after realizing her angry texts were being ignored was to try and control the public narrative. She took to social media with a vengeance. She posted a long, tearful video. Her hair was a mess, her makeup was running. It was a carefully constructed performance of a heartbroken victim. In the video, she never mentioned the overheard conversation. She never mentioned the ring. She just spun a wild tale about how I, for no discernible reason, had suffered some kind of psychotic break in the middle of the restaurant. She claimed I had become paranoid and delusional, that I had stood up and started screaming at her, and that I had publicly humiliated her in a fit of madness before storming out. She ended the video by tearfully asking for privacy. During this incredibly painful and confusing time, it was a bold strategy. She was counting on the fact that no one would contradict her. She was raw. The restaurant Aria is a hotspot for local food bloggers and critics. Several people who had been there that night were in the food scene and had significant social media followings of their own. Within hours, the comments on her video started to tell a very different story. I was there. One prominent food blogger wrote, "This is not what happened." The man was calm and spoke clearly. He gave his waitress a life-changing tip. The entire room applauded him for his kindness. Another commenter added, "We were at the next table. He didn't scream at all. He got on one knee and then publicly offered the waitress $10,000 to help her sick mother. It was the most incredible thing I've ever seen in a restaurant." Even the restaurant's official Instagram account posted a story. It was a picture of a beautiful floral arrangement with a simple caption, "We were honored to witness an act of profound generosity and kindness in our dining room last week. We wish our incredible staff member, Sarah, and her family all the best." Jessica's narrative was not just challenged, it was publicly dismantled by a crowd of witnesses. Her attempt to look like a victim made her look like a liar. She deleted the video within 24 hours, but the screenshots were everywhere. Defeated online, she escalated to a legal threat. I received a thick, intimidating-looking envelope from a law firm. It was a formal demand letter. In it, her lawyer claimed that the engagement ring was a promised gift, and by failing to deliver it, I had breached a verbal contract. It also claimed that my actions at the restaurant constituted intentional infliction of emotional distress. The letter demanded I pay Jessica the full $30,000 value of the ring, or they would proceed with a lawsuit. I had been expecting this. I immediately forwarded the letter to my own lawyer, a man who eats frivolous lawsuits for breakfast. He laughed when he read it. His response was a work of art. The letter he sent back was terrifyingly professional. It stated, point by point, why her claim was baseless. First, no gift is legally considered given until the recipient takes possession of it, which she never did. The proposal was never completed. Second, her claim of emotional distress was undermined by the multiple witness accounts that praised my actions as calm and generous. Then came the masterstroke. The final paragraph of the letter stated that if she chose to proceed with this baseless lawsuit, we would immediately file a motion to dismiss and countersue for all legal fees. Furthermore, we would make the central pillar of our defense the conversation I overheard in the restroom. The letter stated our intention to publicly depose both her and her friend under oath about their conversation. It described their plan as a conspiracy to commit fraud by obtaining a high-value asset under false pretenses, with the express intent to sell it for personal gain. The letter concluded by saying that we were confident that the details of their plan, once made public in a court of law, would be of great interest to both the media and perhaps even law enforcement. It was a checkmate. She was threatening to sue me for a ring she was planning to steal. The threat of having her entire scheme exposed under oath was too much for her. I have heard nothing from her lawyer since. Final update. It has been 6 months since I walked out of that restaurant and into a new, much quieter life. The echoes from that night have finally faded, but the consequences have proven to be permanent. The legal threat was the end of Jessica's campaign against me. She had no move left to make. Her public narrative had been destroyed, and her private legal attack had been exposed as a bluff built on a foundation of fraud. She went completely silent. The story of the proposal that wasn't became something of a local legend. For a few weeks, I couldn't go out to a nice dinner without getting a few knowing looks or a discreet thumbs up from a waiter. It was bizarre, but it faded. The story, however, stuck to Jessica. The grapevine, as it always does, provided the final chapters. Her social circle, which was built on an image of wealth and success, began to abandon her. Being publicly exposed as a liar and, more damningly, as someone who had fumbled a $30,000 payday, made her toxic. Her friendship with the girl from the restroom reportedly imploded in a flurry of mutual blame. The last I heard, Jessica is struggling. Her plan to get a condo failed, and she's still in her old, overpriced apartment, trying to maintain a lifestyle she clearly can't afford without a benefactor. She flew too close to the sun, and the fall has been a long one. But the real story isn't about her. It's about Sarah, the waitress. About a month ago, I received a letter in the mail. It was a handwritten card from Sarah. Inside was a photograph of her and an older woman, her mother, sitting on a park bench, both of them smiling. Her mother looked frail but happy. The letter was simple. She told me her mom had successfully completed her round of treatments and was now in remission. She said the $10,000 had lifted a weight off their family that was so immense she didn't have the words to describe it. It hadn't just paid for doctors. It had bought them peace of mind in the most stressful time of their lives. It had allowed her to quit her second job and just be a daughter again. She ended the letter by saying, "You turned the worst night of my life into the biggest blessing I have ever received. Thank you." I put that card on my desk. I look at it every day. People might say I was foolish. They might say I wasted $10,000 out of spite. They are wrong. It wasn't an act of spite. It was an act of redirection. I took the energy of a hateful, greedy act and I redirected it towards a loving, desperate need. I didn't lose $10,000. I spent it. I spent it on turning a moment of personal humiliation into a spectacle of public justice. I spent it on the priceless memory of the look on Jessica's face. I spent it on the sound of a room full of strangers cheering for an act of unexpected kindness. Most of all, I spent it on that picture of a mother and daughter sitting on a park bench, smiling. Jessica wanted to use me to get a piece of property. Instead, I used her greed to give a good person a piece of their life back. And I can tell you, without any hesitation, it was the best money I have ever spent. My ex-wife took me to court for child support, for a kid that wasn't mine. She smirked at the judge, until 2 DNA tests exposed her lies. For 5 years, I was married to a woman who, in hindsight, saw me as nothing more than a walking ATM. The first couple of years were fine, normal even. But slowly, the cracks started showing. Lena had expensive tastes but no income to support them. She always had an excuse. She was working on herself, waiting for the right opportunity, planning her future. Meanwhile, I was the one paying for that future. I never thought she'd go as far as to try and trap me into paying for a child that wasn't mine. But that's exactly what she did. 2 years after the divorce was finalized, I got a letter in the mail. A summons for child support. I thought it was a joke at first. We never had kids. That was a major point of contention in our marriage. Lena always claimed she wasn't ready. But now she was claiming we had a 1-year-old son? The timeline didn't even add up. I called my lawyer, Marcus, and had him go over the paperwork. He confirmed it. Lena had officially filed a child support lawsuit against me, claiming I had abandoned her and the baby. She's betting you won't fight this, Marcus said. She's hoping the court will rule in her favor before you contest paternity. That's when I realized what she was trying to pull. In some states, if you don't dispute paternity quickly enough, the court can legally designate you as the father, even if later evidence proves otherwise. Lena wasn't just rolling the dice. She had a strategy. She filed the claim without any DNA evidence, assuming I'd either panic and settle or not react fast enough to contest it properly. If I missed deadlines or failed to show up, the court could enter a default judgment, and I'd be legally responsible even if I wasn't the biological father. She's smart, I admitted. I'll give her that. Marcus smirked. Yeah, but not smarter than the law. We'll demand a court-ordered DNA test immediately. A few weeks later, we were in court. Lena walked in with a quiet confidence, dressed in an outfit that screamed helpless single mother trying her best. She wasn't acting hostile, that would have worked against her. Instead, she played the part of the wounded woman, claiming that I had abandoned her when she was at her most vulnerable. My client was devastated when the defendant walked out on her, her lawyer said. She struggled for months, raising the child alone, while he lived his life without a care. It's time for him to take responsibility. I almost laughed. The acting was incredible. Then Lena looked me dead in the eyes and smirked. She thought she had already won. Marcus stood up. Your Honor, we dispute paternity and request a court-ordered DNA test before proceeding with any financial claims. Lena's lawyer immediately objected. That's unnecessary, he argued. Mr. Carter has never disputed being involved with my client during the relevant time frame. The judge frowned. If Miss Vaughn is certain of paternity, then a test will only confirm that. I see no reason to deny the request. For the first time, Lena's mask cracked. She started to protest, but her lawyer quickly whispered something to her, probably telling her to shut up before she made things worse. The request is granted, the judge said. A court-ordered DNA test will be conducted, and the case will proceed based on the results. Lena was fuming, but she still wasn't panicking. Not yet. That should have been my first clue that she had another card to play. After the hearing, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't adding up. Why was Lena still so confident? Marcus and I decided to dig deeper. Through financial records, we discovered Lena had been receiving monthly payments from another man, Daniel Vaughn. Who the hell is Daniel? I asked. Not sure, Marcus replied, but based on the amounts and timing, it looks like child support. I sat up straight. Wait, you're telling me someone else was already paying her? Marcus nodded. Yeah, but here's the weird part. He stopped sending money 6 months ago. That's when it clicked. Lena had already named someone else as the father. She had been getting child support from Daniel for months, but for some reason, that arrangement fell apart. And the moment Daniel stopped paying, she came after me instead. 2 weeks later, the first DNA test results came in. 0.0% probability of paternity. I wasn't the father. I never had been. I thought this was game over, but Lena? She barely reacted. She sighed dramatically, shook her head, and muttered, "The test must have been mixed up." Marcus scoffed. Your Honor, my client has been falsely accused. We move to dismiss the case immediately. Lena's lawyer, however, was ready. "We request a second test," he said quickly. "Mistakes happen, and my client is confident in her claim." The judge wasn't having it. "This test was court-ordered and properly processed. There is no justification for another." That's when Marcus spoke up. "Your Honor, given that Mr. Carter is not the biological father, we request that the court determine if another individual was named on the birth certificate or has previously been legally recognized as the father." Lena stiffened. Her lawyer hesitated. Now they were the ones scrambling. The judge turned to Lena. "Miss Vaughn, was another man legally acknowledged as the child's father?" Lena didn't answer, but Marcus was ready. "We have reason to believe that Mr. Eddie Vaughn has been receiving financial support from a man named Daniel Vaughn, who may have been led to believe he was the child's father. If this is true, then my client was not only falsely accused, but Ms. Vaughn may have attempted to commit financial fraud against multiple parties." The courtroom fell into silence. Lena's face turned pale. She knew she had just lost. The judge sighed. "Under these circumstances, the court orders an additional DNA test, this time for Mr. Vaughn." Lena's entire body tensed, because now she had no idea what those results would say. Lena sat completely still, her face blank, as the judge ordered the second DNA test for Daniel Vaughn. For the first time since this entire mess started, I saw a genuine panic flash across her face. She had no control anymore. Her entire case was built on confidence, manipulation, and the hope that I'd roll over and take responsibility before she ever had to prove anything. But now, the judge had backed her into a corner, and something told me she didn't know how to get out. I needed to understand how someone could pull a scam like this without thinking about the consequences. So I did some digging. Through mutual acquaintances, I learned that after our divorce, Lena jumped from relationship to relationship, never staying with one guy for too long. She burned bridges everywhere she went, borrowing money she never repaid, making promises she never kept. Then, about 2 years ago, she disappeared from social circles completely. That's when she got pregnant. She told people that the father had abandoned her. She played the victim card so well that she even convinced Daniel Vaughn, who had been dating her at the time, that he was the father. And he believed her. At first, Daniel voluntarily supported her, thinking he was doing the right thing. He helped with rent, gave her cash when she needed it, even paid some of her medical bills. Until one day he asked for a paternity test. And that's when the payments stopped. The court had now ordered Daniel to take a DNA test. But I had a feeling Lena wasn't going to go down without a fight. Sure enough, just days after the hearing, Daniel got a surprise visit from Lena. I wasn't there, but from what I heard later, she tried everything. At first, she went with guilt. She told him that getting the test would ruin their child's future, that even if he wasn't the father, didn't he love the baby enough to stay in his life? When that didn't work, she switched to anger. She accused him of being heartless, claimed he had promised to take care of her forever, and tried to make him feel like he was abandoning a child that might be his. But Daniel had already been burned once. He told her in no uncertain terms that he wasn't giving her another cent until the results came back. And that's when she went for the last resort. She told him she was pregnant again. Daniel called me immediately after it happened. "Man," he said, his voice filled with exhaustion, "she just told me she's pregnant again." I nearly dropped my phone. "Wait, what?" She swore she just found out, said she was going to wait to tell me, but that she needed me to do the right thing and be there for her this time. Are you serious? She even showed me some tests, but something felt off. It was just a picture, not an actual test. I think she was lying. That's when I knew Lena was completely unraveling. She must have realized she was backed into a corner, so she was trying to create a new emergency, one that would distract Daniel long enough to get him to stop cooperating with the courts. I told Daniel to stay the course. If she was really pregnant, let her prove it with medical records. But deep down, I was almost sure she was lying. She was running out of time. A week later, we were back in court. Daniel had done the test, and the results were finally in. I expected Lena to be nervous, maybe even angry. But when she walked in, she looked weirdly confident again. Marcus noticed it too. "She's got something planned," he muttered. The judge started the hearing. "Before we go over the DNA test results, is there anything either party would like to present?" Lena shot up immediately. Yes, Your Honor, I have something important to share. She cleared her throat dramatically, then looked right at Daniel. I'm expecting another child, she said, her voice shaking like she was barely holding back tears. I didn't want to bring this up in court, but given the circumstances, I feel like it's important to say that I will need support. The judge held up a hand. Ms. Vaughn, we are here today to discuss the matter of the first child. Any future claims will need to go through a separate process. Now, let's proceed with the DNA results. Lena's face twitched. She thought she could distract everyone. It didn't work. The court assistant handed the results to the judge. He scanned the document, then sighed. Mr. Vaughn, the judge said, you are not the father. The courtroom was dead silent. Lena looked like she had been physically slapped. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Daniel, meanwhile, let out a breath of pure relief. Marcus leaned toward me and whispered, this is it. She's got nothing left. The judge set the document down and looked at Lena. Ms. Vaughn, he said, his tone now ice cold. You have now falsely identified 2 different men as the father of your child. Given this information, I have serious concerns about the credibility of your claims. Lena snapped out of her shock. This is wrong, she yelled. There's no way, both tests are wrong. The judge raised an eyebrow. Are you suggesting the court-ordered DNA tests were falsified? Lena shut her mouth. She knew better than to accuse the court of fraud. But now, she had nowhere to go. I sat back in my chair and waited. Because this was the moment she realized everything had fallen apart. Lena's entire body tensed as the judge finished reading the second DNA test results. Not once, but twice she had falsely named men as the father of her child. And now, with nowhere to hide, she looked like she might actually throw up. For the first time, she wasn't smirking. She wasn't faking tears. She was just silent. But that silence didn't last. This isn't possible, she suddenly shrieked. Standing up so quickly, her chair scraped against the floor. This test is wrong. Something was tampered with. The judge's expression darkened. Ms. Vaughn, are you implying that the court's legally sanctioned DNA tests were falsified? Lena's mouth opened, then closed. She wasn't stupid enough to say yes. Accusing the court of fraud would only make things worse. Instead, she turned to Daniel, her voice shifting to something softer, more desperate. You know this isn't right, she pleaded. You were there for me, for the baby. He has to be yours. We were together the whole time. Daniel, who had been sitting quietly this whole time, just shook his head. I don't know what's worse, he muttered. That you lied to me, or that you didn't even bother figuring out who the real father was before dragging me into this. Lena's eyes flickered with rage. This isn't fair. She turned back to the judge. They can't just walk away from this. One of them is lying. There has to be another test, a mistake. The judge slammed his gavel. Enough, Miss Vaughn. His voice was ice cold. You knowingly filed a paternity claim without evidence, and when challenged, you attempted to delay and obstruct the process. You have now falsely accused 2 different men in a court of law, wasting judicial resources and causing financial and emotional distress to both parties. Given the circumstances, the court finds your actions to be an abuse of the legal system. Lena's face went pale. Marcus, my lawyer, spoke up, calm and calculated. Your Honor, given Ms. Vaughn's deliberate deception, my client would like to file a motion for sanctions and full reimbursement of legal fees. Additionally, we request the court consider referring this matter to the district attorney for potential fraud charges. Lena let out a small, strangled gasp. That was when it hit her. This wasn't just about losing the child support case. She was facing real consequences. No, please, she stammered, looking between the judge and me. I wasn't trying to hurt anyone. I was just trying to do what was best for my son. I really thought Nathan was the father. And when he wasn't, I panicked. Her voice cracked. I didn't know what else to do. The judge sighed, long and slow, but his expression remained firm. Ms. Vaughn, had you come to this court honestly seeking clarification about your child's parentage, this might be a different conversation. Instead, you attempted to weaponize the legal system to your advantage, first against Mr. Carter and then against Mr. Vaughn. That is not a simple mistake. That is fraud. Lena's knees nearly buckled. Please, she whispered, I have nothing left. For the first time since this all started, I actually believed her. She had nothing. No credibility, no financial support, and now she was about to have real legal problems. The judge turned to me and Daniel. Mr. Carter, Mr. Vaughn, do either of you wish to pursue additional civil action? Daniel crossed his arms. Absolutely. I want every cent back that I ever gave her. Lena sucked in a breath, horrified. I leaned forward. I'll settle for the court sanctioning her and ordering her to pay all my legal fees. The judge nodded. This court orders Ms. Vaughn to reimburse all legal costs incurred by the defendants. Additionally, a copy of these proceedings will be forwarded to the district attorney's office for review. Ms. Vaughn, I strongly suggest you retain legal counsel, as you may be facing criminal charges for fraudulent claims. Lena sat frozen, staring at the judge like she couldn't process what had just happened. 2 DNA tests, 2 false claims, now facing legal consequences. The gavel slammed one final time. This court is adjourned. Daniel didn't even look at her as he walked out. I followed, feeling lighter than I had in years. Behind us, Lena finally broke down, a sobbing mess in an empty courtroom. She had played the system for years. Now, the system had played her, and I was done. I overheard my girlfriend say, "He's going to propose tonight. Watch me say no and make him cry." I still took her to the rooftop, got down on one knee, then pulled out her texts with her gym buddy and said loudly, "Actually, I'm not proposing. I'm here to say goodbye, in front of everyone you tried to impress." The whole place went silent, then applauded. Hey viewers, just a quick thanks. Over 14% of you are already subscribed, and it means the world. If you're new here and enjoy these stories, join the family by hitting that subscribe button. We're on the road to 10,000. This happened last Friday night, and I'm still processing the whole thing. Never thought I'd be the guy posting one of these stories, but here we are. My girlfriend Tiffany and I have been together for a year and 8 months. I'm 27, she's 25. Things had been going really well, and I was getting serious about our future. Had started looking at rings and thinking about proposing on our 2-year anniversary. But life has a funny way of changing your plans. Thursday afternoon, I stopped by Tiffany's apartment to drop off some groceries I'd picked up for her. I have a key, so I let myself in. She wasn't home, but I could hear her talking on the phone in the bedroom. The door was open, and she was talking pretty loud. "I'm telling you, Ashley, he's definitely going to propose soon. He's been acting all weird and secretive." I stopped in the hallway. She was talking about me. "Girl, you should see how nervous he gets when jewelry commercials come on TV. It's so obvious." I should have announced myself, but curiosity got the better of me. The thing is, I don't even know if I want to marry him. Like, he's sweet and everything, but I don't know if he's husband material, you know? My stomach dropped. Plus, I've been talking to Marcus from the gym, and he's just so much more exciting. Like, actually has ambition and goals. Marcus, her personal trainer. She'd been spending a lot more time at the gym lately. "Ashley, what if Tom actually proposes? Like, gets down on one knee with a ring and everything? Girl, you better not say yes if you're not feeling it." "Oh, I'm definitely saying no. I'm just wondering if I should do it privately or make it more dramatic." "What do you mean? Like, what if he proposes somewhere public? That would be so awkward for him." "Tiffany, that's kind of mean." "I know, but like, maybe he needs a reality check. He just assumes I'm going to say yes to everything." "So you'd really say no in public?" "Ashley, I'm telling you, it would be perfect. Watch me say no and make him cry in front of everyone. Maybe then he'll understand he can't just coast through relationships." They both started laughing. I quietly left the groceries on the counter and went back to my car. Sat there for 20 minutes trying to process what I'd just heard. My girlfriend of almost 2 years was planning to humiliate me if I proposed. She was talking to another guy, and she thought making me cry in public would teach me a lesson. That night, Tiffany acted completely normal, cuddly and sweet like always. Kept talking about how much she loved spending time with me. "Tom, you're such a good boyfriend. I feel so lucky." All I could think about was her laughing about making me cry. Friday morning, while Tiffany was in the shower, her phone buzzed on the nightstand. The screen lit up showing a text from Marcus. "Can't wait to see you tonight. This is going to be fun." She'd left her phone unlocked. Without really thinking, I picked it up and scrolled through their conversation. "Marcus, so tonight's the night your boy makes his move?" "Tiffany, that's the plan. Ashley's cousin got us into that new rooftop place. Perfect setting for maximum embarrassment." You're evil. I love it. He needs to learn that just because we've been together doesn't mean I owe him a yes. Can't wait to comfort you afterward. Huh. I'm sure you will. I took screenshots of the conversation and sent them to myself, then deleted the evidence from her phone. There were other messages going back weeks, nothing explicitly physical, but definitely emotional cheating, plans to meet up, plans to train together, just the two of them, late-night conversations about their connection. That afternoon, Tiffany called me at work, all excited. Tom, guess what? Ashley's cousin works at that new rooftop bar downtown, the one with the amazing city views. Yeah? She can get us in tonight. I know it's last minute, but I really want to go. All my friends are going to be there. Here it was. She was setting up the perfect public stage for my humiliation. Sure, babe, sounds fun. Really? You're not too tired? Not at all. Let's do it. Yay, this is going to be such a fun night. I spent the rest of the day thinking about how to handle this. I could confront her privately, but then she'd just deny everything or make excuses. I could not show up, but that would just postpone the inevitable. Or I could give her exactly what she was planning to give me. That evening, I picked Tiffany up at 7. She looked amazing, which made this whole situation more complicated. Tom, you look nice. Ready for a great night? Absolutely. The rooftop bar was busy but not packed. Good crowd, nice atmosphere, incredible views of the city skyline. Tiffany immediately started waving at people she knew. There's Ashley and Madison. Oh, and some people from my gym. Marcus was there. Big guy with tattooed arms wearing a fitted shirt. He nodded at Tiffany when we walked in, then looked at me with what I can only describe as amusement. We got drinks and mingled. Tiffany introduced me to everyone like we were casual friends instead of people who'd been together almost 2 years. This is Tom. He's great. Not my boyfriend Tom. Not Tom, who I'm crazy about. Just Tom, who's great. Around 10 p.m., Tiffany started getting antsy. Kept looking around at her friends and checking her phone. Tom, isn't this place amazing? So romantic with all these lights and the view. It really is beautiful. Like the perfect place for something special to happen. She was practically glowing with anticipation, waiting for me to set up my own public humiliation. You know what, Tiffany? You're right. This is the perfect place for something special. Her eyes lit up. Really? Really? Actually, I was hoping to do something here tonight. Oh my God, really? I looked around at her friends who were starting to notice our conversation. Ashley was already pulling out her phone, probably expecting to record my rejection. Could you get everyone's attention? I want to say something. Yes, Ashley, Madison, everyone come over here. She was practically bouncing as her friends gathered around. About 15 people formed a loose circle around us. Marcus pushed closer, clearly enjoying himself. I waited until I had everyone's attention. Then I got down on one knee. Tiffany's hand flew to her mouth in fake surprise. Her friends started getting excited, thinking they were about to witness a proposal. Tiffany, I said loudly enough for everyone to hear. Yes, Tom? Instead of reaching for a ring box, I pulled out my phone. I'm not here to propose to you. The excitement on her face turned to confusion. I'm here to say goodbye, in front of everyone you wanted to impress. What are you talking about? I stood up and held my phone where people could see. Yesterday I overheard you telling Ashley that you were planning to reject my proposal and make me cry in front of everyone. The crowd went quiet. A few people looked uncomfortable. Tom, what are you doing? I'm giving you the public scene you wanted, just not the one you expected. I started reading from the screenshots I'd taken. Can't wait to see you tonight. This is going to be fun. People in the crowd started looking between Tiffany and Marcus. Perfect setting for maximum embarrassment. Ashley looked mortified. Tiffany, is this real? You're evil. I love it. The crowd was getting uncomfortable. Some people started whispering. Tom, stop this, Tiffany said quietly. You wanted everyone to watch you humiliate me for thinking you actually wanted to marry me. Instead, they get to see who you really are. Tom, please, let's talk about this privately. Why? You didn't want privacy when you were planning to embarrass me in public. That's not what I meant. He needs to learn that just because we've been together doesn't mean I owe him a yes. A few people in the crowd made disapproving sounds. Tiffany, Ashley said, looking shocked. You really said all this? It's taken out of context. What context makes planning to humiliate your boyfriend sound good? Madison asked. Marcus tried to back away from the crowd, but several people had turned to look at him. And Marcus here was looking forward to comforting you afterward. That's not what that meant, Tiffany protested. Tom, one of the older guys in the crowd said. Good for you, man. Nobody deserves to be treated like that. A few other people nodded in agreement. Tiffany, we're done. You wanted to publicly reject me? Consider this my public rejection of you. Tom, I wasn't really going to do it. I was just venting to Ashley. You coordinated tonight specifically so you could embarrass me. You brought Marcus here to watch. You planned this whole thing. That's not true. The texts are right here. Everyone can see them. Ashley stepped forward looking ashamed. Tiffany, I told you this was a bad idea. I didn't think you'd actually go through with it. Ashley, don't. No, this is really messed up. Tom's been nothing but good to you. Several people in the crowd were nodding. A few started clapping slowly. Marcus finally spoke up. Yo, this is getting too intense for me. I'm out. Marcus, wait, Tiffany called out. But he was already walking away, clearly not interested in being part of the drama once it became public. Tiffany looked around at everyone watching her and started crying. Tom, please, I made a mistake. I love you. You love me? Is that why you were planning to humiliate me for entertainment? I was just confused. You weren't confused, Tiffany. You were cruel, and you got caught. I looked around at the crowd one more time. Thanks for your attention, everyone. Have a good night. More people started clapping. Not everyone, but enough to make the point. I walked toward the exit. Tiffany followed me crying. Tom, wait. Don't leave like this. How should I leave? After you publicly reject my proposal like you planned? I wouldn't have done it. I changed my mind. The only thing you changed your mind about was whether you could get away with it. I got in the elevator. Tiffany tried to follow, but I held up my hand. Don't. We're done. Tom, please. The elevator doors closed. I drove home and tried to process what had just happened. My phone started buzzing with texts from people who were there. Dude, that was intense. She really had that coming. You handled that well. Are you okay? Saturday morning, I woke up to multiple missed calls from Tiffany and dozens of text messages. Tom, I'm so sorry. I was being stupid. Please just talk to me. We can work this out. I'll never speak to Marcus again. I'll change gyms. Tom, please don't throw away what we have over one mistake. I didn't respond to any of them. Around noon, Ashley called. Tom, I owe you an apology. You don't owe me anything, Ashley. Yes, I do. I should have told you what she was planning instead of going along with it. You're not responsible for her choices. I feel terrible. She's been crying since last night, but honestly, what she was planning was really cruel. How is she doing? Not good. She keeps saying you ruined her reputation. I didn't ruin anything. I just showed people what she was planning to do. Tom, can I ask you something? Were you really thinking about proposing? I was starting to consider it, yeah. Good thing I found out who she really is first. She really messed up. You seem like a good guy. Thanks, Ashley. That means a lot. Sunday, I returned the ring I'd been looking at. Hadn't bought it yet, but good thing since I won't be needing it. Monday, I got a text from Marcus. Hey man, no hard feelings about Friday night. Your girl was drama anyway. I replied, she's not my girl anymore. And yeah, she is drama. We're not together either if it makes you feel better. Too complicated for me. So Tiffany lost both of us in one weekend. It's been 2 weeks now, and I'm doing well. Really well, actually. The whole experience taught me that sometimes the best way to handle someone planning to hurt you is to expose their plan before they can execute it. Tiffany wanted to make a public spectacle out of rejecting me. Instead, she made a public spectacle out of herself by getting caught planning something cruel. She coordinated the perfect setting for my humiliation. I just used it for hers instead. A few people from that night have reached out to check on me. Turns out, most people don't like watching someone plan to hurt their partner for entertainment. Tiffany has been trying to contact me through mutual friends, but I'm not interested. Someone who would plan that level of public humiliation isn't someone I want in my life. She wanted to teach me a lesson about not taking her for granted. Instead, she taught me a lesson about recognizing when someone doesn't deserve the respect I was giving them. Sometimes the best revenge is just giving people the exact public exposure they were planning for you.